Hello and welcome back to my garage again. Now what I've done is I've gone and bought this little project here. Now what I've done is I've bought this for someone I know, and what we're planning on doing is over the next few videos I'm gonna sort out all the things that are wrong with it. Now in my personal opinion, I would prefer to buy a broken car over a good car. I know that sounds funny, but most people sell their cars because their cars are broken. So I would say 70% of all vehicles that are on the market nowadays, there's something wrong with them. And it's up to you to find that hidden something wrong. Now, when you buy something that's broken, that thing is now broken and is completely unmissable. So at least when you're buying a broken car, you know what's broken. So that's the best thing about it. Yeah, so this is what we got. This is a 2012 Vauxhall Insignia. Lots of things going on with this car. It's got water leaks, it's losing water, suspected head gasket. Rocker cover was leaking like a sieve. In the morning you couldn't even start it, and when you did get it started it was misfiring so badly. It's got an exhaust blow, bad bumpers have got like dings out of them, rear boot lid's got a dent in it, so it needs a new boot lid, rear bumper's got all the paint peeling off, but the actual body shell itself is actually pretty good. So bumpers are not too hard, I can get second-hand bumpers, that's probably what I'll be doing, so changing the old bumpers off. Boot lid, we'll see about that, might see if I can knock the dent out, maybe fill it and paint it. And then as for the engine problems, we're going to check the head gasket, we'll do a chemi test on it, and even if we get a positive, we'll then do a coolant flush, we'll do a second chemical flush, just to make sure, to double check, and we'll also hunt for other water leaks, just in case. Now at the moment, you remember me saying about the running issue that it had? So what we're doing is we're fixing the rocker cover gasket, the leak. So what I found is the rocker cover gasket had gone and it was leaking oil into #1 cylinder, and it had filled up this hole with oil, and then all that was happening is the HT spark was jumping across the oil. Also, this is a 1.8 petrol, not a diesel, so what was happening is the spark was jumping across, so it wasn't even working properly. So we've taken the rocker cover off to do the gasket. Very easy little job, any type of mechanic can do it. So we started off by removing these. So there's little clips in here. So in here there's little pushback clips, one there, one there. You get them with a little screwdriver, you can pull them off and they come away. So take that off, take that off. You have to take the coil pack off that sits in the middle. So there'll be like a plastic cover that sits on it. You'll push that to this way and then it'll pop off. Then you'll have your coil pack underneath, 2 bolts, one there and one there. This is the plug with the little safety latch you have to push back. Push that back, unclip that, take the 2 Torx bolts out, pull that HT coil out, and then theoretically the only other thing you have to take off is this breather here, which just unclips as you can see. Then you undo the ring of bolts and off it comes. So the rocker cover gasket is over here, which I've already cleaned. I just washed it out with a bit of brake cleaner, which is here now. As you can see, it's got all this brown dirt inside of it. I wouldn't even try to get that off. I would just get it as clean as you can, on the outside and the inside. So that's what I cleaned it off with. Then we're going to put a new gasket on and then reinstall it. It also comes off with all the bolts still in it, so they don't come out, they just stay in it. Quite simple. Head, so with the rocker cover, what I did is when I took it off, all the areas, so these areas were all snotted up, all covered in corrosion, horrible oil. What I done is I scraped them all clean with a blade. Then I've just blasted over all the surfaces with a 180 grade sanding disc. And then I've wiped it off with a bit of brake cleaner, so she's all ready for the new gasket. So nice and simple. Obviously when I took the coil pack out, it was well oil fouled, so I've rinsed that all out, cleaned that. I also tried to get the spark plugs out, which I don't think had ever been out in their life. In fact, when I tried to undo them at the start, I couldn't undo them. They literally seized in the head solid. So before I took the rocker cover off, I fired the engine up and warmed the engine up. It took a bit of time to get it going, but I just let it idle. And then once I got it quite warm, I then took all the coil pack out and then started trying to take the spark plugs out. Now what I did is I got a nice long extension bar with the spark plug socket on it, put it over the top of the plug, and then I tapped it with a hammer, gave it a little hit with a hammer. You've got to make sure you're very careful with these, because obviously spark plugs are made with ceramic, so you don't want to go snapping the plug. But that's what I did. Give it a good old shock just to break that thread loose, and then basically manhandled them out with a 1/2-inch ratchet, which is quite good going. I got them all out, no thread come out with them, and then the moment they come out, and I doused them in WD whilst I was taking them out, the moment they come out and that WD fell down the thread, they just literally wound in perfect after that. All it was is they had got literally carboned up around the threads and literally welded themselves into the head. So they've been in and out a few times now with grease on. They're going in nice and easy. I bought some brand new spark plugs to go in, because literally I don't think it ever had a new set of spark plugs. So that's what we're doing. So next job is we're going to put the rocker cover back on. So we're going to put the new gasket in the rocker cover, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put a bit of silicone, not all the way around, don't do that. We're just going to put it in the joints, like in the corners. So it's anywhere where the actual face changes shape, so direction, if you can imagine, where the face changes direction. Like for instance, all this flat surface here will be fine. We could just maybe even put a little bit of grease on it just to let that rubber gasket seat. But where it comes along here and we have this joint and then it lifts up around here, this joint here, we're going to put a bit of sealant in here, because you can guarantee this is where it's going to leak from. That point there and that point there. This will be all right, because this is all flat and running. But where there's a joint here and a changing of angles, we're going to put a bit of sealant in there. Simple as. Like I said, it's a very easy job. So we're going to do that, put that back down, and then see how she runs when we put, obviously she's got all new plugs in it. You can sometimes find, I'm imagining I'm going to fire this up and it's still going to run like a pile of poo, because there's so many things wrong with it. But you can sometimes find what happens when they fill a chamber up, like a spark plug chamber up with oil, where the spark's been jumping through the oil, it basically grounds the pack out and it damages the coil pack. So I'm also expecting that, I'm imagining that the pack's going to be fried. It's going to need a new coil pack as well. But obviously we can deal with that at a later date. Another thing this car's doing, this lovely gem, is the minute you turn it on, the temperature gauge goes to 130 degrees. Now I don't think it's at 130 degrees the minute you turn it on, because it hasn't even run. So obviously it's got a faulty sensor, so we're going to be finding that as well. So yeah, here we go. Let's put the rocker cover back on. Right, cover gasket. Cost about 20 quid. Bargains. It's a bit of a cheap one, but it's not bad. It's alright. Not the best in the world, but not bad. Not the worst in the world either. So, here we go. So first things first, let's get our lovely rocker cover. Let's put our gasket in it. So, put that there. And there we go. Alright, next we're going to do the shake test. Not too bad. The worst thing ever you can do is when you come to put it on, it literally falls out and falls in the engine. So, you put that on like that, we know it's going to fit quite nicely. They've already put these little helpers here to try and help the sealant, but it won't be enough, it will still leak. So again, bit of a shake. Stays alright, we're good. So there we go. That's us, good there. Boom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to relocate to the car. What I'm going to do first, actually, I'm going to put a little bit of goop on it. A little bit of grease. Just a tiny bit. So I'm talking, so you can just about feel it. Not even see it. It's just to help that gasket move as you bolt it down. If you can understand that. So it doesn't snag up. That's what we're doing. We're just giving that tiny bit. But we're going to stay away from these little footprint things. Pop, pop, pop. Now it'll help the gasket slide if it needs to. Especially on this ridge, because the amount of times that you see as you bolt them down, you kind of pull on the gasket and make it sit uneven. At least if you put a little bit of grease on them, it helps them move. And literally is, you don't need a lot. It's literally just so you can feel it, if you can understand that. You can't even really see any traces. It's just literally to stop the rubber from biting as it goes down. There we go. That's it. We're good. So that's that. Bam! That is now greased. Now we're going to go stick it on the car. So, here we go. Let's relocate this camera. So, right, first things first. Now what I have done to make my life a bit easier is I've pushed this back and I've put a little cable tie around it and I've put this pipe on top, which should give me clear ease. I reckon I'll still have to slot it down and under as I go on. And I've pushed this out of the way as much as I can, so I should be able to go straight down. Got a bit of VTR sealant. Now this is no different than, you get this stuff called Durka, made by Adhd, but this is just sump gasket sealant, bit of VTR. And literally you need the tiniest amounts, and you just literally put a little blob there and a little blob there, and that's just to help these corners settle. Then as it goes down, it squeezes out and you won't get no leaks. Simple as. Just a little blob in the corner, that's all you need. Don't need to go painting it with sealant, because if you paint it with sealant, the next person that takes it off is going to hate their life, and there's also a chance it won't even seal. So then you'll be proper happy. At least if you've just done that, you can just clean them little bits off with a bit of Scotch Brite or something, or just scratch it off and you will be away. Now let's get a rock cover. Right, in the rock cover. Now what we're going to do, on we go. Simple as. I'll pull this back. Oh, hang on, I've got to lift that up. Make sure the gasket ain't moved. Nope. Right, I'll lift that up. Oh, that's the worst thing. Like so. And that's it. We're down. Simple as. Next, we need to bolt it up. One. I will say, if you don't get the gasket in right, you'll probably know if it falls out, because what it'll do is it won't push down very easy, and it won't go down square if it snags. So it will give you a little warning. That's it. Also, once I've been doing this, the spark plugs are in, so don't do it or work on the engine with them out, just in case you drop something down that hole when it falls into the spark plug hole, and then you'll really be upset and have a bad day. And this way, at least this way, with the spark plugs in, it will protect you from having an epically bad day. Right, ratchet time. I need a ratchet. Where's the... There it is. Oh, got it. Got it. Here we go. Now these actual bolts here, they are an E10. There we go. Now I prefer to buzz this down quickly by hand, just to feel how she goes down. Yeah, we're good. And don't just do it from left to right. So as you can see, I'm over here now. Now I'm going to be over here. Now I'm going to be over here. Now I'm going to be over here. And that one is. And that one is. The way you'll know whether the gasket hasn't sealed right for sure is it will just leak loads of oil. Sometimes you just gotta, there's only so much you can do to make sure it goes in square, but it should be good. Now I haven't got a torque setting for these, I'm just nipping them up. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That one's not in tight. 1, 2, 3. If someone wants to put a torque setting in the listing, feel free. It will help people out. Some people love to have torque settings. Now this isn't totally important. I would say they're literally like not even 10 Newton meters, probably about 6, maybe 8. So a tweak. So now I'm going to quickly go around, check all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then the one in the middle. Now as you notice, when I've done that, I just went round like that. The easiest way is because if you're jumping all over the place doing your last check, you won't know. They're already done up, so it doesn't matter. All you are doing is making sure you haven't missed any. So if you're going around literally one after the other, you're not going to miss one. It's as simple as that. They're already tight, so it doesn't matter. Even if you do find one that's undone, then you can do it up, and it still won't matter because the rest of them are all done up, and then the one in the middle last. And that's the rock cover on. Simple as. Then we just literally pop this back on here. So this is the breather. There you go, that's clipped there. Then we are gonna pick this up, put this back on the old things on the actual rock cover. So we've got one there, one there. You just push down, clip on. We've got the two, these here are the control valves for the variable valve system. Now these have these little pullback things, you pull them back just slightly so you can push the button down to release them. And I unplugged them, you don't really have to, but I unplugged them because it gives me more room. And then that can go on there. That goes back on. See that one? Yes. There we go. And then you push a little retainer clip in. Boom. That one goes in. That one goes on. That's it. That's clipped over. Then you push a little clip in. There you go. Then I undone these. These are like a kind of like a biting, like a fitting that bites onto the alley to hold them in place. I undone them so I could get a bit more room. Again, push them back on. Right, so there you go, simple as. And now, what I do, my next job, I nip up the spark plugs, drop the coil pack back in, and we'll fire up and see how she runs. Right, so got my 3/8 ratchet to do my spark plugs up. So we're just going to put them in there. We're just going to tweak them up. They've got compression washers on them, and then we're just going to give them a 1, 2, 3. They don't even have to be screened up epically tight. They're just 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Hang on. Right, coil pack. Now that now drops back in here. Some people use a tiny bit of Vaseline on them. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put that in there. These are the torque bolts. Go through the middle. And they are done up. Held on with a T40. Little T40 torque drive. Put that on there. They are tight, but as you can see how tight they are, they're like 10 nm tight. They're not tight at all. But obviously I have no torque wrench settings, so don't go buy my torque wrench settings. I'm just kind of giving you a guesstimation. Right. Main plug for the coil pack under there. On she goes. I'm going to leave the little safety clip out, and that goes over there, that goes over there. They push down. Voila! Job done. Now theoretically, with the new spark plugs on, I'm expecting it to run quite nicely. Quite nice. So now what we're going to do, I've got the battery terminal off. We're going to bosh that back on quick like that. Remember, always take the negative off first and put it back on last. So you don't vaporize any of the computer modules on the car. And again, just slightly. There we go. Right, so it's out of the way. These all gloves out of the way. Ooh. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. All bits of tissue out so they don't suck anything in. There we go. Right. Before this, getting this thing to start was a nightmare. Literally it was like and then it would kind of burst in, kind of get so let's see how she starts now. Let's see if we're any better. Wish me luck. Slight noticeable increase. It now starts pretty well, but the moment you try to touch the throttle, she tries to flood and die. It's on, that's on, it's all good. Now it could be, it almost feels like it's got no fuel, but it could also be where the temperature gauge is going through the roof. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and find which temperature gauge is what. So I'm going to first of all make sure, yeah, keys off. But first things first, I'm going to start by unplugging some of the sensors. So we'll take this one off first. We'll see what the gauge does inside the car. It doesn't go to 130 now. Let's have a look, shall we? Straight to the max. it ain't that one. I'll put that one back on. Normally what happens when they get disconnected, it will drop away, the temperature will fall off. Normally. So next one is the one down here on the side of the head. Down there. So what we do is we'll go with this puppy next. We'll get on it. Which is right down there. There we go. That one's now off. See what she does now. Come on, baby. Let's have a look, shall we? Right, that's the puppy. That's the dead sensor. That sensor there that I just unplugged. Now let's see if we can see it on the book, on the old screen. Yeah, so that sensor down here, which is at the back of the thermostat housing, that there, oh, the torch just gone flat. That sensor there controls the main gauge. That controls the temperature gauge inside the car. So there we have it. So yeah, so now we've got the temperature now is off. So now it thinks it's cold. So let's have a go now. And see what happens. It might try to change its running parameters. Noticeably a major improvement when I unplugged that sensor. You see the temperature sensors on an engine as well. Now this has got three. There's one here which is after the thermostat. There's one which is round the back on the main thermostat housing, which obviously has direct head temperature, and then there's one on the radiator which controls the fan switch, and they all talk to one another. Now what happens with the sensors is they read the temperature of the engine, and then obviously to do with the temperature of the engine, it also affects how much fuel it puts in. So if it's at 130 degrees, it will put less fuel in, because obviously to do with the density of the air. But when cold, when the engine is cold, it will put more fuel in to do with the choke, and that's why she's having trouble running. So now we know that the temperature on the side of the head is faulty. We need to replace that sensor and she'll run even better. And this is what we're doing, is we're slowly eradicating the running issues to make her run better. So we've now fixed the rock cover gasket, so that's done. We put new spark plugs in. We found out that it's the back sensor on the back of the head which is faulty. So once we replace that, she should start nice. We also know that there is an exhaust leak coming from the downpipe. You can hear it's blowing like a trooper. Now that in its own right will affect the running of the vehicle because of the Lambda probe. So even though the engine's blowing out exhaust gases, you think, well, it doesn't matter that there's a hole because the gas is going out. It doesn't work that way. The engine pulses, so it does draw air back in and it can throw the Lambda probes out. So we need to also fix that exhaust leak to actually make this engine run to its best optimal efficiency, and which will also improve its running rate. But yeah, so we're already starting to make a radical improvement. Hope you keep watching this project to the point of completion, when I can actually give it over to the new owner. So yeah, pretty much there we go. Next job I would say will be obviously fitting the new temperature sensor. We'll also be looking at the exhaust and see if we find any water leaks, and we also need to do a chemical test I should say, on the coolant to see if there's any. You do the chemical tests on the coolant. It's the best way, because what you're looking for, the chemical test is looking for exhaust gases in the coolant system. It's literally the red flag. There is no denying it. If it comes back positive, you've got a head gasket issue. It's as easy as that. But on some occasions, if an engine has had a head gasket issue before, the contaminants can still be in, so it can give a false reading. So what I always try to do, if I get a positive, I'll try to flush the coolant system as best as I can until the point where I can fill it back up and then do another chemical test and get a negative. And then I'll run it around for about 15 minutes, come back and then test it again. And if I get positive again, then I know that the head gasket's gone, because I've gone from negative to a positive test, and there's no other way to deny that the gases have come out within that 15 minutes of running. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, like I said, with this car, I have not got any actual torque settings. I have not got a manual for this car. So please remember that all my torque wrench settings that I'm giving are kind of just to kind of give you some kind of idea how tight I'm doing things. Because obviously there's only so much you can see with me turning a ratchet. So please bear that in mind. If you do need torque settings, go get yourself a manual. Just go buy a Haynes manual or something. Or even easier, just go on Haynes.com. You can easily buy a manual and get access to torque settings within 5 minutes. Okay, it costs you 25 quid, but at the end of the day, if you join up and sign up to it, you'll have a manual for life. So theoretically there, and as long as you've got your phone with you, you'll have a torque settings, as simple as that. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed watching. Please like and subscribe. If anyone wants to add some torque settings down into the listings below, then please do so. But please, even with them, remember that they're not from a reputable source. They're from, you know, they're just to help you out, if you know what I mean. I imagine that they will be right, but just take them with a little pinch of salt, if you know what I mean. All right. Hope you enjoyed watching. Please like and subscribe.